In a crisis, every second counts. I know you've got to act without hesitation. When someone goes into cardiac arrest, I jump into action with chest compressions to keep oxygen flowing to their brain until the pros can defibrillate their heart and bring back its rhythm. And really, stopping the bleeding always comes before worrying about a broken bone. There I was, sitting on my patio completely at a loss about which step to take first. I found myself in uncharted territory, feeling utterly blindsided. After years of working as a critical care nurse, I'd fine-tuned my knack for spotting even the slightest changes in a patient's condition. I could catch subtle signs that someone was on the decline and react quickly enough to save a life. Yet somehow, I missed the warning signals that my nearly 18-year marriage was falling apart. I wasn't even interested in trying to fix it. I even admit that, at one point, I wanted it to end in excruciating pain. But after some thought, I realized I couldn't let innocent people get hurt if I decided to go after my unfaithful wife and her boyfriend. I took a slow sip of beer while scanning my backyard, pondering my next move. The lawn stretched out from the patio all the way to the bayou, with just a few scattered trees breaking the expanse. I lived in a classic southern home, with all the modern conveniences that my father and grandfather had gifted me when I got engaged. The land had been in our family for generations, and our family's construction company even built the house. I chose to pursue nursing rather than join the family business, despite my father's early disappointment. At least my path allowed me some luxuries, a boat, fishing gear, and the chance to take my family on vacations whenever possible. Family always came first, and now their happiness was hanging in the balance. Glancing around, I noticed my sister's house right next door. It looked exactly like mine. I called her over. We had some serious business to discuss. "Isn't it a bit early for a drink, Mark?" "It's only 3 p.m., she teased as she saw the beer in my hand. "I'm off for the weekend and in the mood," I replied, a fact she was well aware of given my flexible work schedule. I liked keeping a cooler of beer nearby so I wouldn't be making constant trips to the fridge. I offered her a drink and she sat down. "So, what's so urgent?" Megan asked. "You told me not to call anyone until we talked first," I reminded her. Then, with a tremor in my voice, I said, "I found out Lily is cheating on me." "Are you sure?" "Maybe it's just some cruel joke," she asked. I simply nodded. The attached video left no room for doubt. "Who sent it?" she pressed, and all I could say was, "I don't know." The email bluntly stated, "You should know your wife is cheating. Here's your proof." And it was signed by someone fuming, marked as 999. Megan's anger was immediate and fierce. That cheating cow doesn't realize you're going to tear her and her lover apart. "Do you know who that guy is?" she demanded. I nodded, ready to explain further, but she cut me off. "If Ethan ever cheated on me, I'd destroy him. How does Lily even find time for an affair? She's home almost every night, except when it's bachelorette parties, and I'm always there." She continued, "She works with Ethan, and they usually carpool together. He'd definitely notice if she was out having fun." Megan paused when she saw the shock on my face. "No way," she exclaimed. "She's cheating with my husband?" "They're both cheating on us with each other." Her face flushed and tears sprang to her eyes. "I'm sorry. I wanted to break this to you gently," I murmured as I wrapped my arms around her. "I've had a couple of hours to calm down, so I'm not in the mood to grab a weapon." After a brief bout of crying, she composed herself and asked, "So what do we do? Wait for them and then confront them?" I replied that while I still loved him, I simply wasn't going to tolerate this betrayal. "We need to be smart about this," I insisted. "Let's act normal tonight, just like we did yesterday. Greet them with a kiss." Megan frowned. "Are you serious?" "We need a plan. Let's get some legal advice tomorrow." Trying to lighten the mood, I added with a smirk, "At least we know we haven't contracted any STDs." She shot me a look and said, "Hell no, I never even considered that." I chuckled and said, "You know me, I might joke about becoming a TV star, but you'll never see me actually try." She finished her beer and tossed the can aside, and I handed her another one. "And just so you know, I'm not planning anything with Ethan. I just got my period," I quipped, which made her laugh. "This arrangement will hold until we confront those cheaters," I declared. "He's not getting anything from me. Lily can have him," I warned, "and we can't let the kids know just yet." That morning, they had left for their mom and dad's place. They took their time, not raising any objections or asking questions. They simply hopped into Jason's car and drove off. My kids, son Jason, 16, Mark, 14, Tom and Rachel, both 15, and my daughter Emily, 15, had spent the entire summer together. During the pandemic, they grew closer, acting more like siblings than cousins since they were always around one another. Ethan had been a good father figure and uncle, actively involved in the kids' education and activities. I took charge of our outdoor adventures, teaching them about camping, fishing, and hunting. We'd set up camp in the backyard and then slowly venture deeper into the swamp. As they grew older, they joined in on fishing trips, sometimes with Ethan or Megan driving the second boat. Lately, Ethan had even let his sons take over his boat while he stayed back at home. The kids became self-reliant. They learned how to forage for their own food on our trips and always worked together as a team. They were tough, and they really valued family and teamwork. Just 3 weeks ago, I managed to rearrange my work schedule so I could have 6 days off in a row. I ended up taking the girls in one boat while the boys went in another. We moved slowly to avoid getting stuck in the shallow spots and to steer clear of any underwater obstacles. Every now and then, we'd stop so that everyone could take a turn at the wheel. We spent a whole week at the old Popo fish camp, fishing, catching crabs, and enjoying the quiet life. At first, I really thought this trip brought us together as a family. But, as it turned out, I was the only one who felt that way. Apparently, Lily and Ethan didn't care about family as much as I did. The thought of telling the kids about Lily and Ethan's affair was gut-wrenching. It felt like a punch to the stomach. Family has always been everything to me, and the idea of destroying that bond was something I couldn't forgive. I told Megan how I felt. She listened for a moment and then said, "We can't keep this from them forever. But maybe we can hold off for a bit, give ourselves more time." I nodded. "I'll do my best to keep things normal for the kids, but eventually, we'll have to deal with it. But I can't forgive what Lily did, no matter how she tries to explain it." Megan agreed. We were both on the same page. There are a lot of things I can tolerate, but infidelity isn't one of them. Now I just needed to figure out how to get rid of Lily without losing everything in the process. I won't let her take the kids, and I'm not going to risk going to jail over this. And I don't want to hurt Ethan either. He's not the one who matters right now. The kids do. I opened another beer, trying to clear my head. Megan got it. We need to hit him where it hurts. I'm going to take every penny we can. Child support, alimony, everything, I added. I agreed. Since Ethan made more, Megan had a better chance at getting the upper hand. But I knew the courts often favored women in divorce cases, so Lily could very well drive me to prison. Megan, ever the practical one, said, "I deal with trusts and wills in my work, but I know enough about the law to know our assets are safe. The houses are protected." She was right. Those properties had been gifted to us before we got married, so Lily and Ethan couldn't claim them. "Lily might try to stay in your house until the kids are grown, but she can't lay claim to it," Megan said. "Didn't you and Lily sign a prenup?" "Yeah," I replied. "It clearly says that if either of us cheats, the one who strayed gets only 25% of the joint assets and no alimony." That had been insisted upon by Lily's father, a wealthy plastic surgeon who was worried I'd end up with half his fortune if I married his daughter. My own father made sure that Megan and Ethan signed similar agreements. Megan was more concerned about the video of Ethan and Lily. Who filmed it? And how did it end up in our hands? I looked at her, answering, at least 3 cameras were involved. The footage I got shows the same thing from different angles, so it hasn't been edited yet. The weird thing was that neither Lily nor Ethan seemed to realize they were being recorded. "I want to see it," Megan insisted. So, I pulled it up on my tablet for her to watch. Her reaction was immediate. "Holy crap," she gasped. She was furious, especially when she heard Ethan and Lily laughing about how we were clueless. "Ethan is done for, but we need to figure out who made this video. We can't let this come back to bite us," I added. "I don't care if the world sees it, as long as it doesn't cause us any harm." "I agree," Megan said. "But let's hold off on making any public moves for now." She sat there, quiet for a while, lost in thought. Eventually, the silence broke and she started sobbing. I pulled her into a hug and we both cried, unable to keep the pain in any longer. Later that night, I met Lily at the door. I kissed her like everything was normal. I was surprised when she kissed me back instead of pulling away. There was no aftershave on her, just the smell of her perfume. Despite my anger, I told her dinner was ready. Megan and I had already decided on takeout. Neither of us had the energy to cook. We joked about poisoning our spouses, but it was just dark humor to help us cope, not something we actually considered. The next morning, I watched Lily climb into Ethan's car. I called Megan. "How'd it go?" "Everything's fine," she said. The joking and planning helped me keep my calm. "Any idea where they're going tonight?" I asked. Megan, always ready to vent, wasn't holding back now. We had to be real with each other. By 10 a.m., we were sitting in the office of one of Megan's bosses, Jake, a divorce attorney and an old friend. Jake agreed to represent us. "You're sure you have video evidence of both parties?" he asked. We nodded. "Yes, but we're not showing it yet. As long as you have proof of infidelity, you're good. And with your prenups, you're in a strong position," Jake said. "Mark, did you get a lawyer's opinion before signing?" I explained that my father had insisted on it, and Megan used the same agreement. Jake continued, "The cheater only gets 25% of joint assets, savings, investments, the works. But personal accounts aren't affected." "Do either of you have any hidden income?" he asked. We both shook our heads. "What if Lily has money she didn't tell me about?" I asked. "That's common property," Jake replied. "Anything you bought without telling her. Home improvements can get tricky. But your homes are protected because they were gifted before marriage. So she gets only 20% because she cheated, right?" I clarified. "I'm willing to give her that," I said. Jake smiled. "As for the rest, we can negotiate. If she wants anything else, she'll have to pay for storage and transportation." That grin said it all. We were on the right track now. "These are the moves we'll make," Jake said, his tone firm. "The key is your solid prenups. As long as you have proof of infidelity, you're in the clear. Keep the video copies private and secure." He warned us that if they tried to sue over the video going public, it would depend on how it had been obtained. "Be careful," he stressed, reminding us to proceed with caution. Megan and I exchanged a look, both of us nodding. We had been toying with the idea of editing the video and showing it to our friends and family, but we were concerned about the impact it might have on the kids. Now, though, we were even more determined to figure out who had filmed it. We agreed to serve the divorce papers on Thursday at noon, but I suggested we wait until Friday afternoon. That way, Lily and Ethan would be stewing all weekend, unable to get legal advice. Jake convinced us to go with Thursday, pointing out that it would save us money and still keep them occupied with financial statements over the weekend, which would likely increase their legal fees. At first, we had planned to serve them in person to see their reactions, but Jake advised against that. Instead, we decided to serve them at their workplaces in front of their colleagues. After leaving Jake's office, we stopped by the bank to set up new accounts in our names only, making sure we had the statements. We paid off and canceled our credit cards, then opened new ones. When I checked my email, I found 3 more videos of Lily and Ethan. I thanked the sender and asked how they had gotten the footage, expressing my concerns about it going public. I secretly hoped the videos would be released, but I knew we had to be careful to avoid any lawsuits. About an hour later, I got another email, this one containing an address, 7203 5th Avenue, apartment 302. I went to the address and convinced the woman at the counter to give me information by implying the tenant was involved in illegal activities. She gave in and provided me with the details. It turned out the apartment was rented through the insurance company where Ethan and Lily worked, with Ethan's signature on the lease. I couldn't help but wonder how the company would feel if they knew they were unknowingly funding Ethan's affair. At 14:30, Lily called me, furious about the divorce papers. I answered calmly, telling her I knew she had found someone else and that I was setting her free. We had prepared for this moment. Lily denied everything, calling it a rumor and threatening to take everything in the divorce, custody of the kids, child support, half of our assets. She even suggested that Ethan could move in with her and I could live with Megan, trying to paint a picture of what they might be doing in my house. "Go ahead," I said. "Get yourself a lawyer." I struggled to keep my voice steady, filled with a mix of regret and anger. I hoped Megan hadn't told Ethan too much. "By the way, the girls are packing your stuff." Megan told the boys to pack Ethan's. "Everything will be outside for you to pick up this afternoon. We also got a restraining order and changed the locks this morning," I added. "You'll need to find somewhere else to stay until the court makes a decision." Lily's voice grew louder, and I hung up. 10 minutes later, Megan texted me, "Backyard, bring your cooler, make sure it's full." She had a beer in hand when I joined her. "That idiot Ethan," she started. "He tried to blame it on some secretary's gossip. I told him Lily was just as guilty. He denied it all," she continued. "Said we shouldn't believe any of it. I told him to get his things." "Really?" "Yes, I said he should call first because I had a loaded weapon. I was glad we had Jake and the deputies coming soon. It was smart to have them there, just in case things got out of hand. Ethan might try to provoke me, and I didn't want to end up in jail for assault. I was already on edge, feeling like I was in the middle of an emergency." Megan, sensing my anxiety, said, "I'm really glad you talked to the kids earlier. I couldn't have done it without breaking down." We gathered the kids, and I told them what was happening. To my surprise, they seemed to expect it and immediately began packing up Lily and Ethan's things. Megan said, "They took it better than I thought." Maybe they're just in shock or don't fully realize how it'll affect them. My phone beeped with an email. I wonder if it's from Angry 999, I said, half joking. Check it, Megan urged. She helped me open the email, and we listened to the audio file together. Can you believe Margaret and Megan served us? Lily's voice came through the speakers. They must have found out somehow. I can't believe this. Just last night, Margaret was so affectionate, she said, disbelief in her voice. Relax, Ethan's voice replied. They don't know anything. Someone must have gossiped about us having lunch or driving together. We have to deny everything. If they go through with this divorce, we'll make them pay. I know a lawyer who will help us. Just don't admit anything. Act like everything you say is being recorded. Megan and I exchanged a look after hearing it. We remained silent for a moment. Okay, let them think we don't know anything, I said finally. Ethan mentioned they've been planning something for a while. We need to make sure we're protected if they do anything illegal. Megan nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. We have to stay strong. I know, she whispered. Jake said I'm in a better position, she added. Courts tend to favor women. I can't accept Lily getting custody of Jason and Emily and living in your house until Emily turns 18, Megan said, her voice trembling. Even with the prenup, it's wrong for her to live there rent-free while you're stuck paying child support. I felt the same way, but I just held her tighter as she cried. I tried to reassure her that we'd come out on top, though I wasn't entirely certain myself. Divorce is all about limiting the damage, I said, trying to calm the situation. The kids were silent as Megan and I walked into the house. Emily and Rachel were busy packing Lily's clothes into suitcases, and some things were being stuffed into plastic garbage bags. I asked them to take pictures of the bags, planning to use their value in our asset division. Next door, the boys were almost finished packing. Ethan had fewer clothes, and the boys were cramming them into bags instead of folding them neatly. I couldn't help but chuckle when I saw Mark stuffing a $2,500 suit into a bag. They were on my side. Lily texted me, and I called Jake, who arrived shortly with 2 sheriff's deputies. Relax and enjoy, Jake advised, keeping his cool. Lily and Ethan pulled up, with a familiar face tagging along Delacroix Noah, a schoolyard bully from back in the day. Well, Margaret, Delacroix sneered. I hear you're having trouble with your wife and son-in-law. No big deal. If I'd had a weapon in hand, I might have used it. Delacroix was a massive guy, and a fight was definitely not in the cards. Hey, Delacroix, I said, keeping my voice steady. We're just trying to work things out. You don't seriously think my boy Ethan is with your wife, do you? I asked, trying to get a rise out of him. That's the story, I said flatly. Jake took a step closer, sensing I was done with the confrontation. Lily immediately accused me of draining our bank account. Yes, and I've got the statements to prove it, I replied. You'll get your fair share. She hadn't realized yet that her credit card wouldn't work anymore. Megan and I didn't follow Lily and Ethan into the house. Emily and Rachel went with Lily and one of the deputies to keep an eye on things, while Jason and Mark went with Ethan. Where's my jewelry? Lily demanded. This was a sticking point. Over the years, I had bought Lily high-quality jewelry worth at least $27,000. Most of it was locked away in my safe, and I had taken pictures of her ring and necklace for insurance purposes. I wanted to make sure I had proof of ownership. Delacroix started to argue, but I explained I was just making sure the jewelry didn't disappear. Jake stepped in, suggesting we get a fresh appraisal of all the assets. After talking to Delacroix, Lily reluctantly took off her jewelry and handed it to me. Where am I supposed to go, you rear? She asked. I almost suggested her love nest on 5th Avenue but stopped myself. I just shrugged, realizing my feelings toward her had changed. Just days ago, I had loved her. Now, all I felt was anger and detachment. Lily and Ethan finally left, with Delacroix trailing behind. I wondered if they were heading to the apartment, but Jake smiled. I hope so, he said. We've got someone following them. If we bring up the apartment, it could help our negotiations. Instead, they ended up at the Plaza Hotel near their office. I helped them unload their things, though I was more focused on getting extra flash drives to back up all the audio and video files. Megan and the girls were preparing dinner when my phone beeped with another email. Megan came over to watch as I opened it. Okay, guys, Delacroix's voice came through. Someone's probably following Margaret. Stay at a motel and get a room with 2 beds. Make sure both beds look used. I listened intently as he continued. The investigator can bribe the maid to check. We'll tell them you're sharing a room to save money. It was embarrassing when my card was declined, Ethan added. Good thing I took extra cash. What's next? Delacroix asked. I'll call the credit card company to open a new account. Then he said, Margaret's thinking about jewelry. He probably has a list. You need to protect any hidden assets. Legally, they're community property, but what Margaret and Megan don't know about, they can't claim. He paused. Don't hide too much. You might get caught. If you have a secret bank account, make sure it's got a small amount in it. Offshore accounts are better. You don't want to be caught lying under oath. Lily's voice came next, asking, what now? They can find our Brooklyn accounts, Ethan said. Screw that. We'll fly to the Central Park and open an account there. Make the room look used, Delacroix advised. Wet the tissues, ruffle the towels, wet the shower, and use some shampoo. I'll call the office and say we're off tomorrow. The audio file ended, and Megan and I were left in stunned silence. Do they have secret bank accounts? Megan sighed. Where did the money come from? I see the bank statements, I said. There couldn't have been much hidden. I felt guilty too. Lily and I used to get $50 a week for travel expenses, and we'd both review the credit card statements together every month. I told the apartment woman Ethan was into pills and courtesans to bluff them. I admitted, wondering if I had uncovered something deeper. But now, I'm not so sure. Could he be hiding more? We decided to leave it for the night and join the kids for dinner. There wasn't much we could do about hidden bank accounts anyway. The following morning, I drove to Jake's office, where I had arranged a jewelry appraisal and an estimate for my firearms from a local dealer. Megan went to work briefly, and we met at Jake's office, where I played the audio files from the previous day. I'd like to know who's sending these, Jake remarked. How they managed to bug Lily and Ethan at the hotel is beyond me. A private investigator couldn't have done it that quickly. He continued, we might need a judge's order to access their bank account details, which could mean hiring an investigator. Megan and I shook our heads when asked if we noticed any missing money. Jake then said, if you want to speed up this divorce like you mentioned, we need to act fast. Next week, we'll meet with Lily, Ethan, and their lawyer to list assets. Then we'll head to court. Louisiana's Napoleonic laws make things easier, especially with proven infidelity. Counseling won't help here. Jake added, once the judge makes a ruling, you'll have a 6-month waiting period before it's all finalized. Then Delacroix called, demanding that I release an additional 30% of the money I had withdrawn. I reminded him that the prenup clearly states the cheater only gets 20% of the assets. He demanded proof of infidelity, which we'd gladly present in court. It was amusing to watch him struggle. I'd love to get an audio recording of him advising to hide money offshore and play it in the courtroom. I had to work that weekend, as Sharon, the head nurse, couldn't cover my shifts. What if I start coughing and need a COVID test? I asked. You idiot, Sharon teased with affection. Yes, I can fill in. You've got vacation and sick days saved up. Take an emergency vacation if you need it. I decided to suggest, how about I work this weekend and take my vacation starting Monday? Really? Thank you. I owe you one, Sharon said, grateful. I'll start your sick leave and then your vacation. Take as much time as you need and keep me posted. Working was a welcome distraction. Weekends in the ICU were always busy, but the staff had to stay sharp. I was surprised to see my father-in-law, Dr. Prejean, waiting for me at the nurse's station. Hello, Dr. Prejean. What brings you to the ICU? I greeted him, aware that the staff would be curious. Cut the crap and let's talk, he hissed. In the head nurse's office, he asked, what's all this about you kicking Lily out? She called her mom, crying. I said bluntly, Daniel, I found out Lily's having an affair. She's cheating on me with my sister's husband. I'm dealing with a family crisis. He didn't take it well. That's just office gossip, Daniel said. They commute together and often have lunch together. Lily told us the affair rumors about her boss were just that, rumors. I decided to be honest with him despite our history. I haven't told anyone except my lawyer and my sister. I haven't even told Lily and Ethan everything I know, much less the kids, I said, trying to hold back my emotions. I've got proof, videos and audio recordings. This isn't just a rumor, I added, knowing that was the hardest part for him to hear. Daniel looked genuinely shocked. What are you going to do? He asked softly, already knowing the answer. What can I do? I replied. I'm trying to protect the kids, but I can't just ignore this. Daniel's face softened as he spoke. What would you do if Lily had proof that I was cheating? I'd want your head on a platter, he said, tears forming in his eyes. I'd help her bury you. His concern shifted. What about Jason and Emily? How are they handling this? They're talking to their cousins and each other more than to Megan or me. I explained. They seem to be holding up, but they're angry with Lily. I've told them to talk to her, but I don't know if they have. Daniel shook his head. I'm not getting involved in this. I thought you were overreacting to some gossip, but now I understand. My priority is protecting Jason and Emily. I nodded. And I'll help Lily with her physical needs. I don't excuse her actions, but I can't ignore the truth if it's undeniable. Daniel's face softened, and he put a hand on my shoulder. Stay in touch. You're an honorable man, he said, walking out with his shoulders slumped. I felt more sympathy for him than for Lily. So he knows his daughter isn't so virtuous, huh? Megan said when I got home. We need to tell my parents soon, I said. How about tomorrow night after my shift? We don't want them to be mad at us for keeping it from them. I agreed, and the next day, we sat down with my parents. My father only asked if I had proof, and I assured him I did. Like Daniel, he was more concerned about the kids than about me and Megan, which I understood. In our culture, children came first, and adults dealt with the consequences of their actions. Children needed to be protected, but also informed. I hadn't received any further information from my mysterious benefactor, and that was fine with me. I already had 4 explicit videos showing Lily and Ethan, along with audio recordings that confirmed their affair. That was all the proof I needed. Lily had not only cheated, but also financially defrauded the family. What still bothered me was the mystery of how she managed to save enough money to fly to the Central Park. It made me furious. She was a thief and a fraud. Jake began looking into their accounts using their social security numbers, making sure we'd be able to subpoena statements if any money had gone missing. Some answers came the following Wednesday when we met to list our total assets. A court-appointed financial arbitrator was there to review the paperwork. I provided my annual salary and Lily's pay stub. Lily made $6,000 a month, while my salary fluctuated with overtime, but we both made about the same amount annually. Jake said this would allow for minimal alimony, even without the prenup and the proof of infidelity. On Monday, the auditor requested income tax returns for the past few years. I found ours in the desk, while Megan had to get copies from her accountant. She was upset to discover that Ethan hadn't filed his taxes along with other necessary documents. She knew Ethan made around $80,000 compared to her $50,000, and she was pleased when Jake said she'd likely get a substantial maintenance payment. Then, Delacroix entered the conference room, flanked by a sullen Ethan and Lily. Lily glared at me with an intensity that caught me off guard. I expected an apology, but she stayed silent, probably under Delacroix's advice. Ethan was trying hard to keep a neutral face. The court officer introduced himself and his assistant, who began taking notes and keeping an electronic record of everything. Let's get started, he said. Your attorneys have forms for you to sign, confirming that your statements today are true and may be admitted as evidence. Our goal is to compile a list of all assets and income for the judge to review. We won't discuss prenuptial agreements today. Regarding car valuations, we'll use the standard blue book. If the car your child drives is registered in your name, we can consider it separate from community property if both parties agree. We'll discuss the money later. Let's start with Mr. and Mrs. DeRosier. Listing automobiles, firearms, the boat, and household goods took no time at all. Even Lily's jewelry wasn't an issue. I'd had it appraised, and its value exceeded that of my truck and firearms combined. Delacroix insisted the solar system be considered separately, preparing a document to state its value and depreciation. Jake reviewed it, made a few notes, and nodded. The 401k accounts came next. I asked why they were even being listed, thinking they should be excluded. No, they count since you've been married for over 10 years. But in your case, the values are similar, so it's not a big issue, Jake explained. We then reviewed the checking and savings accounts. Jake entered the statement showing I had taken 80% of the funds and did the same for Megan and Ethan. It's straightforward, said the auditor. Mr. Durand, there's a large discrepancy between Mrs. DeRosier's salary estimate and her tax returns for the last 2 years. Ethan tensed. I've estimated that each of you earned $50,000, I explained. I multiplied her monthly salary by 12. Yes, but for the last 2 years, Mrs. DeRosier reported an income of $130,000 annually, the auditor said. My incredulous, what the hell, made the assistant frown. Didn't you look at your tax returns? He asked. I shook my head. Lily and Ethan had a new accountant handle our taxes electronically. I just looked at the small refund we got. Lily's face turned purple. Her salary includes $80,000 in bonuses each year, the auditor continued. And Mr. Lavoie got $110,000 in bonuses each year. Megan asked, how much extra is that? Net, about $70,000 a year, totaling about $160,000, the auditor said. So where's the money, Lily? I demanded. Is that why you went to the Central Park last Friday? To hide it? Lily shot me a furious glare. How did you find out? Are you following me? Then she collected herself. No, I didn't need to, I said. You did it yourself. Both you and Megan insisted the kids install phone locator apps. Jason and Emily used it to track you when you didn't answer them on Friday. They saw you near the coast, which suggested you were in the Caymans, I added. Lily and Ethan were stunned. We checked your office on Monday and saw you weren't home, but in Brooklyn. You were likely transferring money into new accounts, I continued. Jake stepped in. Delacroix, we can get statements to prove those account balances. Hiding money offshore to avoid distributing joint assets is illegal. Your clients flew to the Caymans right after hiring you, Jake added. Hiding assets like this is a felony. Lily started crying, and even Ethan looked terrified. Delacroix's face went from pale to red. I didn't do anything like that, he said, looking over at the recorder and Duran's assistant, who was furiously typing away. Megan asked Jake, can we make them return the money? Jake nodded. Yes, we'll get our share in the end. Even if we have to confiscate their paychecks, 80% of those accounts will become yours once infidelity is proven in court. But there's no money left, Lily exclaimed. It disappeared when we tried to transfer it. Ethan tried to silence her, but she persisted. I think you stole it, she accused me. I looked at her incredulously. I didn't know for sure about the money until recently. I had suspected something, but I didn't realize the extent of it. What are you claiming now? Did you spend it all or lose it? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Both seemed far-fetched. Lily explained that they had tried transferring the money electronically at the bank in Times Square, but the transfer had been denied. They'd then gone to Brooklyn to investigate further. The online statement showed the transfer, but with no routing number or account details. Provide me with the bank information for the Brooklyn account, and I'll investigate, said Mr. Durand. I can get the results faster and enter them into the court documents. Ethan and Lily left the room looking dejected. Megan and I exchanged glances, both wondering where the money had gone. I shrugged, echoing her thoughts. It seemed our case was moving forward more quickly than expected, likely because Lily and Ethan had begged Delacroix to speed things up. They'd stayed at the Plaza Hotel for a week before moving into the apartment on Fifth Avenue. I couldn't help but be amused imagining them in their little love nest, probably struggling with cash flow and Delacroix's hefty fees. All 5 of our children insisted on attending the hearing, and I agreed since they were directly affected by the divorce. Jake explained what to expect. Judge Calloway ran his hearing semi-formally, sitting at the table with us. Jake, Megan, and I sat to Delacroix's left, while Ethan and Lily sat across from us. The kids were in the gallery. Following Jake's lead, we all stood when the judge entered. He waved for us to sit. I handle family cases in a semi-formal setting, he said. Sit and speak when I address you. Raise your hand if you want to speak. Be on your best behavior and respectful. If you piss me off, I'll throw you out. Understood. The kids had to stifle their laughter at his last comment. Well, I've reviewed both cases. Normally, we treat these as separate matters, but the evidence and parties involved here are the same, Judge Calloway began. A sibling is accused of infidelity in Louisiana. While infidelity alone isn't grounds for divorce, prenuptial agreements can affect property distribution in such cases. Therefore, I'll need irrefutable evidence of infidelity. He continued, there were also discrepancies regarding monetary assets, with allegations of hiding funds. My investigation shows that Mrs. DeRosier and Mr. Lavoie have bank accounts in Brooklyn with balances of $120,000 and $160,000, respectively. The entire balance was transferred from these accounts the Monday before the divorce petition was filed. The correct passwords and security questions were used, the judge went on, indicating the transfers were made by Mrs. DeRosier and Mr. Lavoie, or someone they authorized. Further investigation revealed the money was split evenly among 5 accounts belonging to their children, Jason and Emily DeRosier, and Margaret, Tom, and Cynthia Lavoie. These transfers are legal under the Uniform Gifts to Minors Act. The judge paused, and I was stunned. Why was Lily making such a fuss if she had given the money to her children? The judge continued, the parents showed responsibility, if not remorse, by giving the money to their children. Such deposits are non-refundable unless fraud is proven. Does anyone have proof of fraud? I was thrilled. While I'd wanted my 80%, knowing the money was divided among the children was enough for now. Ethan and Lily looked shocked, realizing we might have outsmarted them. When Judge Calloway asked if we had proof of fraud, we all shook our heads and said, "No, Your Honor." They seemed terrified of possible charges for hiding money overseas. None of them appeared willing to challenge the judge's words. The next matter is the establishment of custody for the minor children, the judge said. Emily raised her hand. Yes, Your Honor, she asked. I read that children 15 and older can choose which parent to live with, she continued. In some states, yes, Judge Calloway replied. In Louisiana, I consider the children's opinions after speaking with them privately. Emily stood up and declared, I don't need to talk privately. My mother cheated on my father and our entire family. I want to live with my dad. Jason stood up beside her and agreed. Margaret, Tom, and Rachel also stood, each of them saying they wanted to live with their mother for the same reason. My heart raced, and I squeezed Megan's hand under the table. I will consider your wishes, Judge Calloway said with a small smile. But it hasn't yet been established that there was, as you put it, treason. Emily raised her hand again, and the judge turned to her. I also read that a 16-year-old can petition the court for emancipation, and 17-year-olds can leave home without a petition, she said. Yes, the judge replied. The 17-year-old rule is an old law for young men wanting to enlist in the military without parental consent. For a 16-year-old to petition for emancipation, they must be able to support themselves. Is that clear? Emily nodded. I have a college fund with another $56,000 added to it, plus what my parents and grandparents contributed. Rachel stood up next. Me too. Collectively, we have plenty of money to live on our own for a long time, Emily said, and her brother Tom stood up, smiling. Me too. We could rent a nice place together. Jason and Mark chimed in, both standing and saying that if they pooled their money, all 5 of them could manage just fine on their own. I glanced at the judge, who seemed to suppress a laugh. He looked at us, then at the kids, and said, let me guess. If I don't go along with your wishes, you'll all petition for emancipation or leave on your own. The 5 heads nodded in unison. Sit down, he commanded. I'll consider what you said. He paused for a moment, then added, there's an allegation of infidelity in this case, which affects the prenuptial agreement and property distribution, so I'm going to need evidence of infidelity. Jake stood up and said, Your Honor, I have these pictures of Ethan Ardlavois and Lily DeRosier together. Delacroix quickly objected. Anyone can alter photos. I have a picture of me shaking hands with the president and another of us playing golf, made by my son as a joke. Defense counsel hasn't identified the source of this evidence. Judge Calloway glanced at Jake, then at Megan and me. Jake nodded for me to respond. Your Honor, the evidence came from an anonymous source, I explained. I received several video and audio files and took these screenshots from one of the videos. I have the full video on a DVD and thumb drive. I looked over at Ethan and Lily, who were both shocked and agitated, shaking their heads in disbelief. Judge Calloway noticed their reactions, observing their purple faces and clear distress. Okay, he said. Do I need to reproduce the file Mr. DeRosier provided, or do all parties agree that infidelity occurred? Delacroix hesitated, but then quickly turned to Lily and Ethan. After a brief consultation, he reluctantly said, We agree with the plaintiff's claims. Well, in that case, I will announce my verdict, Judge Calloway continued. Since all parties agree that infidelity occurred, the marriage contracts will be honored in each case. Megan and I were awarded 80% of the community property. The judge suggested we discuss the actual distribution with our attorneys to avoid court involvement in the details. He then moved on to custodial arrangements. For custodial parents, I grant Margaret DeRosier full custody of Jason and Emily DeRosier, and Megan Lavoie custody of Cynthia, Margaret, and David Lavoie, as requested. The non-custodial parents have full visitation rights. Legally, the divorce would be finalized in 6 months. The increased incomes meant Lily would pay me $1,100 a month, and Ethan would pay Megan $2,100 a month for the next 3 years. Each dependent child would receive $600 a month until they turned 17. Jake suggested the payments were minimal and suggested we could appeal, but I decided against it, and Megan agreed with my decision. After the judge ended the hearing, we left the courtroom. Jake said he would arrange a meeting to work out the property distribution details. I told the kids to go home, change, and wait for me for a family meeting. Megan and I walked to the back of the courtroom where my father was waiting. So, when did you figure it out, Dad? I asked. Megan looked confused. It hit me when Emily and Rachel made those comments about the video. I said to Megan, Pissed off $999 is a personality the kids invented. Megan's mouth dropped open. No, Dad said. I figured it out a few days ago when I saw an old credit card bill. Jason and Mark asked me 2 months ago for a credit card to plan something special for your anniversary, he explained. They promised to reimburse me about $500. The statement showed a purchase from an electronics company. At first, I didn't pay attention, Dad continued. But when I called the company, they revealed the kids had bought cell phone bugs. The kids spent $600 on spy devices? I asked, surprised. Yes, apparently they were expensive. Dad didn't know where they got the video cameras, but he followed me home to find out more. All 5 kids were waiting in the living room when we walked in. They fell silent as we entered. Let's go to the kitchen and sit down, I said. Megan grabbed 3 beers, handing one to Dad and me. Jason and Mark held out their hands, grinning. You may be old enough to be spies, but not old enough to drink, I said. They shrugged, clearly not angry. Okay, who wants to start? I asked. Emily raised her hand. Let's begin at the beginning, she said. It all started when Rachel and I stopped by my mom's office, and she wasn't there. Neither was Uncle Ethan. This was around the time they began phase 2 of the COVID lockdown. We thought we could get some money from one of them to see a movie. The receptionist said they were out and had left long ago. It was well past lunchtime, so we decided to track them. You know, we have a locator feature my mom insisted on installing on our phones. It showed they were at a strange address, so we checked it out. It was an apartment building. When we arrived, we saw Uncle Ethan's car and waited. They came out later, walking hand in hand, smiling. That got us thinking, so we started tracking where they went over the next few days. For 3 days straight, they returned to the same place and stayed for about an hour and a half each time. Sometimes they went there late at night, after work, but before going home. We told the boys about it, Mark continued. We searched the internet and found bugs you can insert into cell phones after downloading an app. It works like a continuous phone call in the background and doesn't interfere with regular calls. It does drain the battery a bit faster, Mark said, sounding like he had done plenty of research. It transmits all the sounds around the phone so you can eavesdrop. We talked Pop into letting us use his credit card to buy them. Sorry we lied a bit, pal, Mark added, grinning. Installing the bugs in the app on their phones was easy, he continued. We took turns checking them and eavesdropping on conversations. We recorded anything interesting to share later, so that's clear with the audio recordings. But how did you get the video and find out which apartment they used? I asked, genuinely curious. We looked at their keys, Emily replied. They both had a key marked 201. That's not their office number. So Jason copied Mom's key. We went into the apartment a couple of times and looked around. We decided we needed cameras, Emily explained. So we bought a few and a small transmitter, added Tom to the team. That was pretty cool. Tom looked excited as he added. The boy was pumped about the technology. But he didn't notice he was describing the end of several marriages and the breakup of 2 families. At least Megan and I got some answers, I thought. The cameras were motion sensitive, so they didn't burn through too many batteries. We hid the receiver under the couch. The receiver got information from the cameras and transmitted it to our receiver. We recorded it. It seemed simple. So, you took a video of Lily and Ethan doing it? I asked, carefully. I had to tread lightly here. These were my kids, my nieces, and nephews. I couldn't ruin my relationship with them over this, but there was another issue, money. Dad, when Rachel and I first looked at that apartment, I realized our mom wasn't gone, Emily said. Well, not gone. But she wasn't coming back to where our family used to be. They had clothes stashed away. Mom had some outfits I recognized. She had a makeup kit, towels, and washcloths too. We knew what they were doing, Emily went on. They'd work out, clean up, and then come home to you, and Aunt Sue like nothing had happened. We were all furious. They weren't just cheating on you and Aunt Sue, they were cheating on us. Now, about the money, Rachel cut in. The secret bank accounts were a side issue. When we looked around the apartment, we found some bank account papers. There were instructions on how to access it online. It took a while, but we found the actual accounts, Rachel explained. We even spent time in Dad and Aunt Lily's offices, peeking in on them. A couple of times, the receptionist let us in to wait for them. She giggled. We looked through a bunch of folders and finally found one in the bottom drawer of Dad's desk with some applications. Then we looked in Aunt Lily's office and found more papers. Aunt Lily had a small notebook in her purse with passwords and stuff in it. It didn't say secret bank account, but we could tell the password was unusual, much more so than the one she uses for her cell phone. And it worked, Rachel continued. It took a while, but eventually we realized it was the right password. They were using the same password for both accounts. Jason took control of the situation at this point. We already knew they were up to something shady. When we discovered their hidden bank accounts, we got really angry. We wondered if they were dealing pills or embezzling money. Tom blushed and sheepishly added, "Actually, I said we can't let Dad and Aunt Lily get rich and leave us hanging. We read about dividing assets in a divorce, and we didn't like the idea of them keeping half the money either. We had accounts set up by Powwow, and I thought maybe we should take all the money. I thought the cops might catch us," Jason admitted. "But since we were minors and it was our parents' money, we figured we wouldn't get into serious trouble. We thought it might work, so we did it. If we'd known about the 80-20 share, we probably wouldn't have taken it," Emily said regretfully. "It actually worked out better that way," I said, looking around the table, trying to gauge the mood. I was at least a little relieved to see that none of them seemed proud of what they'd done. "That was the hardest part," Jason said quietly. "We were really mad at Mom and Uncle Ethan for what they were doing to all of us. We didn't want to hurt you and Aunt Sue, but we couldn't do anything. So we sent you that first video," Jason finished. "We kept trying to get you to visit Mom and Dad. We knew you were upset," Emily said. "If you'd pulled a weapon out of the safe, we would have told you everything. We knew you'd tell Aunt Sue. We kinda moved on. We already moved the money that Mom hid," she added, with a guilty glance. "I think we stole it." "Well, I know we stole it, but we figured they cheated us, so it was only fair. I hope you and Aunt Sue weren't too upset," she said. I glanced at Megan, who had a look of amazement on her face since this all started. "I hope you kids never get mad at me," I said with a smile. But I added, "Aunt Sue, if you ever nail me like you did your mother and Ethan, I'll punch you into the next life, even if it's with my walker in a nursing home." They all chuckled at my threat. "You'll never have to worry about that, Daddy," Emily said, looking at me with affection. "You'll never let the family down. We Cajuns stick together." My dad, who had been quiet for a while, finally spoke up. "One thing I don't understand, you bought cell phone bugs with my credit card? Those were awfully expensive. Where did you get the money for the video cameras?" "From them," Jason replied, his voice casual. "Yeah, they cost about $500 each because they shot full video with sound and had built-in motion and sound detectors. We got 5 of them, plus another $500 each for a hidden transmitter that sent a signal to a receiver we hooked up to Emily's computer, totaling $4,500, plus shipping," Jason went on, like it was no big deal. "But we can get half of that back if we return it undamaged. We already pulled all the cameras and the transmitter." "But you probably lost the cell phone bugs," I said, still trying to process it all. "As for the credit card," Jason continued, "we used Dad's Visa card." "I didn't have a Visa card," I said, confused. "Well, we do now," Jason said, without any guilt in his voice. "I applied for it and forged your signature." "At least he was honest enough not to look guilty," Emily quipped. "It has a $10,000 limit," Jason added. "We bring in the mail every day, so hiding it was easy. And Rachel and I set up an email account called Pissed Off $799, Emily said with a grin. "Mark came up with the name. He said what Mom and Uncle Ethan did made him mad." The kids smiled and nodded, seeing that Megan, Dad, and I were genuinely impressed. "So, the bugs in the cell phones are still active?" I asked. Tom nodded. "Yes, they work as long as the cell phone batteries are charged. Thanks to that and the phone location app, we know where they are and what they're doing at all times," Tom said, looking thrilled. "If one of them is talking on their cell phone, we can hear it. It's voice-activated, so it's mostly car sounds and business talk," he added. We took turns going through the files to pick out anything important. "I demand access to the audio recordings," I said. It was almost like I was trying to negotiate, but really, I wanted to know everything. As a result, I continued, "Megan and I had advanced knowledge of Lily and Ethan's demands. At the property division meeting, Lily was so eager to get her jewelry that she gave me most of the cash and all of the housewares. We granted some of their requests without much argument," I said with a small chuckle, "but we made them grovel during the process. Megan shocked everyone except me when she suggested they walk across town with signs on their heads that read, 'We cheated on our spouses.' The alternative," she threatened, "was to appeal the amount of alimony and child support." I thought Delacroix's eyes were going to pop out of his head at that threat, I said, shaking my head at the memory. "We heard Delacroix tell them they got off easy on the child support payments and warned them that Megan and I would likely appeal the amounts. Megan eventually recanted, forcing them both to apologize on their knees." "I don't know exactly how it happened," I said, "and I'm willing to swear on a stack of Bibles that I had nothing to do with it. But somehow, 2 months after our hearing, the insurance company that Lily and Ethan worked for found out that he had rented an apartment for a love nest using company funds. Although everyone in the office had gotten premiums for the past 2 years, I continued, for some reason, Lily's premiums were much higher than usual each year. Ethan managed to get big bonuses too. No one ever figured out why. When all this got out, he and Lily were fired, I said, shrugging. No big deal. The company didn't want any publicity. None of the videos ever made it to the internet. Megan and I couldn't have cared less, and we joked over beers that it would have been fun to make them stars. But the kids didn't want to publicly embarrass themselves. We understood their point of view, I added, glancing around the room. Lily and Ethan now live in New Orleans, working for a small shipping company. Since leaving town, they hardly ever visit the kids, and they rarely even call. Last I heard, they're having a very difficult time paying child support and alimony. I wish them well, I said with a shrug, then added, well, maybe not.